Trigger warning, today we're going to talk about scenarios like getting yelled at by autistic people. And we're going to focus on what we can do to improve those situations instead of what they should do. A comment I get frequently from fellow autistic people is about struggling to make peace with someone being angry at us if they won't explain why. Especially if they insist we should already know why. For example, let's say someone invited us to an event, and when we get there, the person who invited us is mad and says, "I can't believe you would wear that here." So we ask if what I wore was that important, why didn't you tell me ahead of time? Now let's say they're angry at us for asking, because it should be obvious. We're likely to get angry right back. It's totally unfair that they expected us to know something that wasn't explained, so we insist on getting our answer. How were we supposed to know? Why didn't they tell us? How could they be mad at us for not doing something they never told us to do? And let's say the person continues to not explain, and we are left enraged and dysregulated the rest of the night. Our need for explanations in order to understand is valid. But inconveniently, it's also valid for someone to say no to explaining. For an autistic person, being held to boundaries we can't wrap our heads around is confusing and dysregulating. It feels awful. So if they don't explain, we can feel like they're harming us. This is partly because of the nature of the autistic brain, but also because of the trauma of growing up having our needs constantly gaslit. So if our take on a situation makes perfect sense to us, and we were given no rational explanation for why they see it differently, the only conclusion we know how to deduce is that our point of view is being disregarded and invalidated yet again. And sometimes it is, but no one owes us that validation. Our gaslighting trauma and our struggles with confusion with undefined things aren't anyone else's problem unless they choose to make it so. Admittedly, in this example, the person who invited us is being an asshole. They may have expected us to know, but if they refuse to receive our truth that we didn't, that warrants an apology on their part. It's valid if they didn't know they need to tell us things like that, but if they respect us, this situation would have been their opportunity to learn that they do. But regardless, if we're insisting they give an explanation that they don't want to give, we are violating their boundary. It's never okay to violate someone's boundary, regardless of our opinion of it, because we have no say in what another person says, does, or cares about. Requiring absolute justice to regulate our emotions is like trying to get ransom money from a rich person by holding our own child hostage. It makes no sense to put our heart in the hands of someone who isn't and has no interest in being responsible for it. Nobody else cares what we feel we are owed. I'm not suggesting we honor their boundaries at our own expense. We benefit from doing it because it's in our best interest to regulate our emotions without requiring their cooperation. Take their power away. They are unfit to wield it. Time to focus on our own boundaries instead of challenging theirs. We can't make them explain, but we can maintain we won't understand until they do. It's a simple switch. Scratch out, "I demand that you explain," and replace it with, "I'm not going to understand if you don't explain." By doing this, our boundary violation will transform into a boundary. This does not mean they're guaranteed to understand, but it does mean that if they continue to insist we should understand without the explanation, they're the boundary violators. I personally have a boundary that I do not accept people in my life who expect me to understand things they don't explain. They can either explain or have to deal with me not knowing. And that's that. This perspective switch requires we accept that we won't always get our explanation. And demanding it won't help. Not because they're willfully withholding it, but also because they may not even know what it is. Not everyone thinks that hard about why they feel a certain way, and even if they have a nebulous idea, they may not have the language to explain it. A lot of the time, the reason they blame us for our demand is because of the pressure we're putting on them to form words and sentences that they can't form. And they don't have to. If they say no, no means no. Boundaries need no justification. It is vitally important to understand that there is no morally acceptable solution here that guarantees we will get the exact response we want. It is not acceptable nor wise to expect total control of another human being. The goal is to limit the impact their harmful choices have on us. But I can give you all a firm, defined, autistic-friendly principle that can make it easier to respect boundaries we don't understand. Boundaries are sacred. Ours and theirs. Whatever someone says they want, need, or are is a fact. Changing another person is never an option. And once we hold that as a firm internal law, we can fortify our own boundaries. So, if our need for an explanation is a boundary, their need to not explain is also a boundary, and boundaries are sacred, then how do we navigate that? Step 1 would be to take some time and assess how important this relationship is to us and how likely the other person is to work with us. And if they aren't likely to work with us, I repeat, assess how important this relationship is to you. Then, validate their boundary. Both boundaries have the right to coexist, and if we treat it like a zero-sum game, they're gonna inevitably defend their boundary, make us feel invalidated, and reinforce our trauma response. Here's an example paragraph that you can edit to fit your own specific situation. I totally get how it's frustrating that I can't understand what I did without an explanation, and I get that pressuring you to explain it comes off pretty shitty. I hope that you can also get that I won't understand what I did or how to avoid stuff like this in the future if I never get that explanation. So how about we take a break from this for now, and when you're ready, you can explain this to me so that I know for the future. This way we're firm that we need an explanation to be trusted to meet their needs, but we're not demanding they do something they don't want to do. They can keep withholding their explanation if they want, but we're off the hook for understanding what isn't explained. It's important to note that I didn't use the word but. But can be perceived as retracting our acknowledgement of their perspective. This should be an and, not a but. It's a lot easier to respect other people's boundaries if we respect our own. The key here is removing our dependence on validation from others to hold our boundaries. They can think what they want and do what they want, but we are who we are and we need what we need. And the longer we're true to ourselves, the more we attract company who accept our true selves and accept that we cannot meet unexplained needs. If you're enjoying my content, please do consider following my other social media accounts at lindsaymakesvideos.com.